Hi fans of high quality entertainment, just letting you know that later today I'll be uploading a video to my ASMR channel, opening up a couple of CDs. I don't even know what this one is. And I think I'll probably also talk about all of the Elvis Costello CDs I've gotten in the last few weeks. I think I have 19 of them now. So please subscribe to that channel. So believe it or not, I'm always thinking of new video ideas, not just, stack 1 versus stack 2. And last night I was thinking about albums that have meant a lot to me in my life. You're emotionally connected to them for whatever reason. Not just because you love the record, but, just that moment in time, I guess. Or maybe becoming a fan of the band or whatever. So I was going to do 10, but I got all excited and I've done 20. And I'm cheating a bit with one of them because, and it's only one artist, by the way, so there's only one Beatles CD in this. Or it could be all Beatles. But, like I said, I'm cheating a bit because the first one I'm going to show you is 2 CDs from 2 different bands. And I bought these together in Toronto at Sam the Record Man in the summer of 1971. One was released in July and the other one was in August. So I guess I got them in August of 71. And they also have similar names too. And I remember probably playing them for the first time, both of the albums, and not being sure if I liked them or not. But, after 2 or 3 spins, I love both of these albums. And they are The Who. Who's Next? And The Guess Who, So Long Valentine. And yeah, it was just cool, especially one being Canadian. I almost chose Share the Land, which I've talked about, because that was when I realized they're Canadian. And, I was actually really proud of that fact, because I thought they were just, an American band or something. But yeah, these 2 together that day. So, very special memories. And these aren't in any order, they're all over the place. Some of these I'll go through pretty quickly because you've heard the stories many times. 1974, I saw Sparks on the Midnight Special. They were really weird. Visually and their sound. And so I ran out the next day and bought this album, played it, and threw it in the garbage. But luckily I took it back out. And I've been a fan ever since. And I think it's from that, I think that was the album where I realized, don't give up on an album just on one listen. Give it, I would say after 3 listens, if you don't like it, forget it. But even an album like Tales from Topographic Oceans, it took me a lot of listens to really love. But I still liked, right? So, but if you don't like an album you're trying to get to enjoy after 3 listens, just toss it. So for the Beatles, I could have chosen many albums, of course. But I've chosen from 1969 Abbey Road because I believe that was the first Beatles album that I owned myself. And once again, a story I've told so many times, but my dad had this stereo cabinet with a turntable and a reel-to-reel tape and a radio. And I remember playing Abbey Road for the very first time, and it went to, first of all, side 1, when it ends abruptly with I Want You, She's So Heavy. That was kind of a shock, watching it, and then all of a sudden it's done. Because for the vinyl era back then, sometimes you just, well, if you're not staring at the album cover, you're watching the album spin and spin and spin. And then side two, I've told the story so many times, the song The End had ended, and I'm waiting for the needle to, return, and it just keeps spinning and spinning. And I think there was like a 20-second gap or so. And I'm not hearing anything, but the record keeps spinning. So I turned it up all the way. And that's when I had my first heart attack. When I said that before, somebody actually took that seriously, like at the age of 58, the age of 11, I had my first heart attack. I didn't, but it scared the bejesus out of me. Can you say bejesus? I don't know. But yeah, special memories. And as I said, playing an album for the first time, sometimes you hate it. Just like Kimono My House the first time. And this album, I'd always heard when I would go into record stores, people would talk about it. And I remember the owner of the store one time hearing it for the first time, and he said it was terrible and all that. And so when I finally did buy it, I hated it. But luckily, I didn't throw it in the garbage, and I gave it a chance. And this is probably, all four of their albums are excellent studio albums, but this might be my favorite. And Sister Ray is just one of the heaviest tracks. So, and there's a Lou Reed album coming up too. And I'm not sure if it was 1969 when I got this. I think it was, even though it came out in 1968. And when I got this, I think it was a Christmas present. I think I got it with Abbey Road. And maybe I liked some of their songs on the radio, but I was disappointed when I got it. But then I played it, and I fell in love with Creedence Clearwater Revival's Bio Country. And I love that back cover. I kind of wish, I like the front cover, it's cool. But I love the back cover even more. The only song, I like it more than I did back then. The only song I really couldn't stand was Graveyard Train. And I used to play air guitar to Keep on Chugling and Won't Get Fooled Again back in the early 70s. I was the originator of the air guitar. Nobody seems to acknowledge me. So back in the 70s, I used to, I didn't have much money. I had a newspaper route, but usually I couldn't buy albums. They were too expensive. They'd be like $5 or $6. But I would buy a lot of cutout bin albums. And sometimes I'd come across an actual good album, like the Buckinghams from the 60s. And this was my first blues rock album. And it's been one of my favorites in my life ever since. Canned Heat, Hallelujah. And it had a gatefold. Once again, I bought this, I'd heard great things about this band, and especially their lead guitarist, reading up on him in Rolling Stone, Cream magazine. But when I bought this, I didn't hate it, but I was disappointed that there wasn't the crazy guitar work I thought there was. But it took a few spins to get it, and there really is a lot of amazing guitar work on it. Blue Oyster Cult, Secret Treaties, and now I have everything by them. Huge fan. And Buck Dharma is one of the most underrated guitarists in rock music, I feel. So for Yes, I've always liked Yes. My older brother, he was a huge Yes fan. Tales from Topographic Oceans, Close to the Edge, Yes album. So I would hear those and really like them. But the very first album that I owned on my own, I think in a way it became, and it's not one of their most loved albums, but it became one of my most loved Yes albums because it was the first one that was, it's mine. It's not my brother's record. It's like I bought it. I listened to it and I got to love Tornado. Yes, that's right. I'm not saying it's my favorite Yes album, but I love the album. Even though Rick Wakeman supposedly threw a... No, he didn't like the... I even liked the album cover, but I guess supposedly Rick Wakeman threw a tomato at the artwork. And I mentioned Velvet Underground. I'd always heard of Lou Reed, with, like I said, magazines and everything. But I never heard him until, once again, in a cutout bin for maybe a couple of dollars in 1976, I got Coney Island Baby. And as soon as I heard the first song, Crazy Feeling, and he sang out of tune for, he wasn't the greatest singer, it's like, I love this. Because it was so real. I like, sometimes I like unique singers that maybe aren't the greatest singers, but just the way they sing, they're meaning what they're singing. And Lou Reed is definitely one of my favorite singers, even though he's not a great singer. So Coney Island Baby. Okay, Bob Dylan. I've always liked Bob Dylan. I loved his, I think the first album that I really appreciated was his Greatest Hits Volume 2, which had 2 records on vinyl. But this album has always been special to me. I remember listening to it in 1979 with headphones, and kind of a spiritual, not that I'm religious or anything, but I'm a spiritual person, and so this album always kind of gets to me. Slow Train Coming by Bob Dylan. That's right. And I think, people complain about his vocals, but I think he's a great singer overall. Really sings well on this album. This might be the first double album I ever owned, and the first live album maybe too. And I think I'd heard some of their other albums before, but once again I bought it with my own money, having a paper route, Grand Funk Live album. And just recently on my, I don't know if it's just this channel or the other one, somebody was asking about Grand Funk and which album to start with, and I said their second album, the Red Album, and he listened to it, and he's a fan, and he's checking out all of their early albums. So thank you. Once again, I'm not sure how I got this album, and I was kind of impressed with the names, even though I'd never really listened to their music. But once again, I was 58, 68, maybe 11 years old. But I warmed up to it, and it's been one of my all-time favorite albums ever since, Blind Faith. Thankfully, it had this. I didn't know about the other album cover for years. Do what you like. Moving up a few years, and speaking about certain albums that get you emotionally, this one, every time I play it, I got tears. It is Johnny Cash, American 4, The Man Comes Around. And not, Hurt is great, and of course the video, but everything on this gets to me. Give My Love to Rose, Bridge Over Troubled Water is gorgeous. I Hung My Head, The Man Comes Around, In My Life, of course. For me, he is like, if God was a singer, it would be Johnny Cash. Now there's negative memories too, but it's still a memory, I guess, right? And so, being a huge Beatles fan, a huge John Lennon fan, I went to the record store one day, and this album was in the racks. And I went up to the counter. I kind of knew the owners. They were neighbors of ours. And she said, don't, she's telling me not to buy it because it's just a bunch of screaming and everything, and people were returning. I didn't listen to her. It's got a friggin' Beatle on the cover. I'm gonna buy it. And I had nothing against Yoko Ono. I liked, I don't know if it was before this, but songs like Who Has Seen the Wind, the B-side, and I actually thought it was sweet. This isn't sweet. So I took it home. It's on, I think, the Zappa label, was it? I'm pretty sure it wasn't on Apple. And yeah, I didn't even play all of it. I mean, for side one, it was guitar feedback and screaming. But, now, today, I appreciate some of it, like the song Why with the awesome guitar work by John Lennon, and even her screaming vocals, I really actually love. Yeah. But this one, no. I returned it to the store, and luckily she was nice enough to let me return it. So this one, it's not the original album that I had, but I wanted to bring it up. Early 70s, this Greatest Hits album came out, and I wasn't really into like funky music or anything. I had nothing against it, I just didn't hear it. But when I got the Greatest Hits of Sly and the Family Stone, every song was a gem, and I think that album, for a single Greatest Hits from, the 70s, it's one of the greatest hits albums ever. Just so talented, Sly Stone. And yes, I love James Brown too. And I've told this story before. I've told every story before. But, big Beatles fan. I liked the Rolling Stones, but I was never, I loved Ruby Tuesday and some of their other songs. But I never really heard their albums until I was given Through the Past Darkly, Volume 2. And it was like, oh my God, every song, in time, I became a huge fan of. So, they're not up there with the Beatles, but they're still pretty up there. And thanks to the Beatles, and then, listening to all kinds of different genres of music, from the weirdest stuff like Captain Beefheart and Sparks to Randy Newman and everything in between. When this album came out, I loved it right away. And although most fans of this artist didn't care for it, and they still don't, most of them. Neil Young Trance. I love him. And speaking of Yoko Ono, Season of Glass I love, one of my favorite albums. I'm waiting for it to be remastered, but listening to this, I'd never really heard it until maybe 5 years ago. And it is one of my all-time favorite double albums. And, she's... someday I want to do a video on her, but, I know I'm going to get bashed in the comment section by some people, but I've got a tough skin. But this is truly song-based, very little screaming in it, and I think her vocals are sweet. The band is awesome. Elephant's Memory, it's a great album, but it's just my opinion, right? Two more. Huge fan of this artist, and it's because, I'd heard, once again, I'd heard of him in the 60s. I used to love looking at his album covers, but not knowing what the music sounded like, but being very curious. And once again, in a cutout bin, in the year this came out, 1975, I bought Frank Zappa's One Size Fits All. And I was like, this is regarded as probably one of his best albums. And so, I lucked out buying this instead of some crappy album. Not that it has that many crappy albums. And then most people know the story about, this is one of the best for memories because it's memory almost full. I hadn't really bought Paul McCartney albums for over 20 years. And I heard Dance Tonight. I saw Dance Tonight on YouTube, the video for it. I really thought it was catchy. I thought, oh, I'll buy this album. Not thinking I would absolutely love it almost right away. And I'm back listening to Paul McCartney. I went back Off the Ground and Chaos and Creation, all of his albums. I still don't care for Pipes of Peace though. And I don't care for that album cover either. But that's it. Yeah. So let me know in the comment section below, what are some of your, or do a video. What are some of your favorite memories from all of the albums? Thanks for watching. Have a great day.